All right.
Thank you, Greg.
Are we ready?
People are popping in.
Okay.
I'm admitting a couple more and they should be in here.
Just give me the thumbs up when to start.
I think we're good, Lisa.
We're good?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, all right. Good morning. Thank you for joining this pre-application webinar. My name is Lisa Semino, and I am a senior procurement specialist with Oregon Housing and Community Services. Today, we are holding a webinar for RFA 7279 Down Payment Assistance Program. You will hear from procurement as well as Alicia Howe with the program. And then we will have a Q&A session when we're done speaking to the RFA. So let me see. I want to clarify that this down payment assistance program is the DPA funds are limited to down payment assistance to reduce mortgage amounts and closing cost only. So we just want to make sure. Kim, is there anything else I need to speak to so that there's no confusion over what this RFA is for?
Sure. The only thing that, good morning, everyone. Kim Freeman, Assistant Director to Homeownership Programs. The thing that I just want to clarify for everyone that's attending today is that this particular request for application has nothing to do with our upcoming Flex Lending program that we will be launching. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that these down payment dollars are not a reflection of that particular program. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, so I am going to go over a few of the requirements in the RFA, and starting with the closing date and time. The closing date and time is scheduled for December 2nd, 2022 at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. On the cover page of the RFA is the email address for all questions. Outside of this webinar, all questions must be in writing. So please send your questions to the email address on the cover page here. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, now I'm looking at page 5 of the RFA, and I want to go over the schedule with you. So as you know, we're currently holding the webinar, and in the schedule, we have questions due on November 11th. However, that was my oversight because the 11th is actually a state holiday. So we will do an addendum to move this date to November 14th, which is the following Monday. So once again, all questions are due by 4 p.m. on November 14th. Any questions that come in after 4 p.m. on November 14th will not be answered. The agency will respond to all questions by November 21st. I am extending this by 3 days given the state holiday. So once again, questions due by November 14th, and the agency will answer all questions by close of business on November 21st. And this information will be in the addendum that we will be posting. All other scheduled dates in 1.3 are valid. Okay, let me see. I am only speaking to the procurement process, and Alicia will speak to the program. Okay, so the other section I would like you to refer to is page 17, section 3, which is the application requirements. Please make sure you go through this section as well as section 3.2 and through 3.3. They speak to the submission requirements, the application page limit, which is 20 pages single-sided or 10 pages double-sided. Any pages that exceed the 20 pages single-sided or the 10 double-sided will be removed from your application and not considered. So please make sure that your application meets the page limits. Also, it's very important that you refer to attachment 5, which is the checklist for this RFA. It's just a good process to go through to make sure that your application contains all the required information. So please take advantage of the checklist. Due to COVID, all applications will be sent electronically, and that information is in the RFA. And it's also at the bottom of page 18. We are not accepting hard copies at this time, only electronic copies to the email address on page 18. Let me see what else we got here. Okay, and I also want to mention, please remember to respond to the round 1 evaluation criteria, which is on page 24 and page 25 of this RFA. And please make sure you respond to all 6 questions, as this is what you will be scored on. The only other thing I want to point out is if you receive a reservation of award, you will be required to provide us with insurance. This insurance information will be in the sample grant agreement. And we are bringing this to your attention now because due to the shortage of staff, insurance companies are having a difficult time meeting deadlines. And so I will be working with you and my coworker Angie to help you get the insurance information as soon as possible so that we have it on file before your agreement is executed. So this is just a heads up. You may want to look through the sample grant agreement on page 27. That's where the insurance requirements are at. And this will be the information that we ask you to provide to the agency. Okay. All right. Alicia, do you want to go ahead and talk about the program, and then we can do Q&A.
Okay, Alicia Howell, program analyst for the down payment program. Thank you for being here. Just, excuse me, a few changes to our program for people that are not familiar with our down payment assistance program. We have 4 different funding sources. We have the HOPE funding, which is the homeowner assistance program funding, and we have the HOPE funding for veterans, specifically for veterans. We also have the construction excise tax in 10 different jurisdictions. Funds for the construction excise tax, you must be serving that jurisdiction in order for you to be awarded those funds or prove that you can serve those areas. We also have culturally responsive funding that is for eligible organizations that are culturally responsive or culturally specific. Attachments are included in the RFA submit with your application. So we're looking for grantees to fund down payment assistance to eligible home buyers with at or below 100% area median income. And we have this money is for first-time home buyers with a maximum of $30,000 or 20% of the purchase price, whichever is less. And then we have a new added program type for first-generation home buyers with requirement for self-attestation for the first-time home buyer and for first-generation home buyer that we will have. And the maximum for first-generation home buyers is $60,000 with or 20% of the purchase price, whichever is less. I'm not sure what else you need to know for on this program for the down payment assistance for the funding. We do require education, home buyer education from a Oregon Housing Homeownership Center listed on our website, or you can submit the education provider application to be one of our approved education providers. We also, and that must be taken 24 months, within 24 months of the purchase transaction. And we are also requiring that the home buyer has at least 2 counseling sessions with either a HUD certified counseling agency or an agency that has adopted the national industry standards. And the counseling must be performed by either a HUD certified counselor or a counselor that has the home buyer home ownership counseling certification. If you are not an organization that can provide these services, then we refer you to our home ownership centers that are listed on our website. And then also we are asking that the home buyer takes the post-purchase counseling with the same HUD approved or certified home ownership counselor within 6 months of the purchase. This is a request. It's not a requirement, as we know that some home buyer education and counseling does include the post-purchase counseling piece. That is something that we feel is very important. I'm not sure. Is there anything else that I'm missing that you think is relevant and important, Lisa? I think I'm good.
Shall we do the Q&A?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So at this point, Alicia, why don't you go ahead and answer the questions that we received so far, and then we can open it up to other questions.
Okay, I need to find that.
So just so the group knows, we received several questions in advance, and Alicia will answer those questions, and then we will open it up.
Okay, I need to find, sorry, Lisa.
That's okay.
Trying to navigate with too many screens here.
And Lisa and Alicia, while they're looking, this is Kim. I know everyone's been putting their email in the chat for this recording, but we will get it posted to the procurement website. So we'll post it with the solicitation, because a lot of times these recordings are too large that we can't email them out.
Right.
So it's just easier if we post it to the website, and then you guys can go in and look at it. And so that's where give us a couple days, because it takes us a little bit to get it converted, and then we'll get it posted to the web so everyone has access to it. So if anyone wasn't here today and you know that they may want to listen to the recording, this way that it's available to everyone.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, Alicia, are you?
Okay, I got them.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So one of the first questions was, are I-10 home buyers eligible for HOPE DPA or CRO DPA? And based on HOPE rules or HOPE's guidelines, which is what we're following under for CRO funds, to receive HOPE benefits, they must be a legal resident to receive benefits. They must be here legally and a resident of the state. Another question was the RFA states organizations that provide down payment assistance over a 2 to 3 year program period with an option to extend the program period and additional funding to eligible awarded organizations for an additional 2-year program period. But then later states CRO DPA funds must be expended to the homebuyer transaction, and the homebuyer transaction must close no later than June 30th, 2023. Does that mean that all CRO DPA funds must be spent down within an estimated 6 months from award? Yes, these are general funds and must be expended to the homebuyer transaction, and transaction must close no later than June 30th, 2023. There are no exceptions to this. The next question is, what is the homebuyer close timeline for general HOPE DPA? HOPE DPA transactions must close during the grant performance period, which could be a 2 to 3 year grant term, unless included in a CRO DPA transaction. Do CROs, culturally responsive organizations, have to spend down their funds faster? No, culturally responsive organizations do not have to spend down their funds faster. Only the CRO DPA funds must be spent within a shorter time frame than the grant term. Can you apply for both HOPE General DPA and CRO DPA in case you're not approved as a CRO? And per section 2.3.3, it states available funding under available funding and maximum limits is, it says applicants may request a combination of all funding sources available. Next question is, can you tell me what performance period for HOPE is? Reviewed the RFP but cannot find it. In the introduction section under agreement term, it says successful applicants will be invited to enter into agreement with the agency to set forth the terms and conditions that govern the award. The initial term of the agreement is anticipated to be 2 to 3 years, depending upon funding, with an option for agency to extend the term for additional 2-year period as or longer as deemed necessary by the agency. You want me to keep going, Lisa?
Do you have more questions?
I do.
Okay, and then we have a couple
through our email.
We also have a couple in the chat too when you're ready.
Okay. Let me get to okay, so we have here, it says, in the past, we have been the only agency serving Corvallis and Eugene with DPA. Are we interpreting the RFA correctly that for CET funds, we are limited to applying for a total of 300,000 across all jurisdictions combined? Or can we ask for total available funds per jurisdiction that we intend to serve? In the RFA, it states that agency reserves the right to provide grant funding amounts less than the maximum grant amount and less than the amount of applicable reservation as stated in this RFA. In addition, agency reserves the right to negotiate with successful applicants to increase the grant amount for any funding source not fully subscribed, including HOPE DPA, HOPE Veteran DPA, CET DPA, and CRO DPA, in an effort to get all allocated funds distributed pursuant to this RFA. Agency further reserves the right to modify grant amounts after the fact to accommodate agency legal, financial, or program needs. Would OHCS consider making the maximum allowable award for all 4 funding categories, 1.4 million? It says fungible, but I'm thinking it's fundable across all areas. The response is applicants serving more than 4 counties may apply for an amount above the stated maximum limits. Next question is the maximum allowable award capped at 300,000 per category, DPA, CET, veterans, and the DPA max for first generation at 60,000 and first time home buyer at 30,000. We would serve between 5 and 10 households. We have the capacity to serve more. How was the maximum allowable award determined? Excuse me. The maximum of HOPE funding per organization was established in 2018 and approved by the Housing Stability Council. And again, with the same response, the agency reserves the right to provide maximum funding in amounts less than the maximum and less than the amount applicable of reservation. Applicant, in addition, the agency reserves the right to negotiate with successful applicants to increase the grant amount for any funding source. And the same comment, applicants serving more than 4 counties can apply for higher than the maximum, the limits stated. I think there were more questions on this email. Nope. Okay, that's that email. And I have one more email that came in that has questions that I'm working on. Let's see, page 4 of the RFA states that OHCS intends to make grants to eligible organizations that provide down payment assistance over a 2 to 3 year period with an option to extend the program period and additional funding to eligible awarded organizations for an additional 2 years. However, page 12 of the RFA states that CRO DPA funds must be expended and homebuyer transactions must close no later than June 30th, 2023. To what extent is the CRO DPA program period extendable? And the CRO DPA funds are not extendable. The funds must be expended to the homebuyer transaction, and the transaction must close no later than June 30th, 2023. The next question is, are all the programs extendable? Which ones are not? So HOPE DPA, HOPE Veterans DPA, and CET DPA funds may be extended. CRO may not. It says, will there be a reporting requirement related to post-purchase counseling? In the grant agreement sample exhibit A, quarterly report requirements, it states, in addition, agency may also request counselor notes from homebuyer one-on-one counseling sessions specific to the home purchase or post-purchase counseling session. The next question I didn't understand to get an answer is an MOU that includes a statement from the partner attesting to the longevity of the relationship between the applicant and the partner acceptable if it is dated less than 6 months before the time of submission. And I'm not sure what that specifically refers to. We'll have to reach out to the person that submitted the question. Page 17, the next question is page 17 of the RFA states the following performance measure, 50% of award to home buyers at midpoint review. Is the midpoint review considered at approximately 3-month mark if funds must be spent by June 30th, 2023? Or is the midpoint considered to be 1 year into the program period, or alternative 1.5 years if the program is 3 years? The midpoint will be, if you have a 2-year term, it'll be at 1 year. And if you have a 3-year term, it'll be at 1.5 years. And that was all the questions. There's just that one lingering question, Lisa.
Okay, we have several questions in the chat. So Alicia, I'll need your help in answering these. The first one is asking, do they have to be a resident of the state, or does buying a home in the state qualify?
They must purchase the home in the state. So if they're not a resident at the time that you're counseling them, they do have to have the education. So, but the purchase must be in the state of Oregon.
Okay, let's see. Here we have several questions. By when must DPA funds be fully expended?
At the end of the performance period, so it could be a 2-year or a 3-year grant period, depending on when the grant agreements are executed. Sorry.
Okay. Is there a Is there a required font and size for the application? No, there is not. You just need to make sure that you keep within the page limits. So most often we use the 11 font, which is a nice readable font for your evaluation members. But that is up to you. But just remember, the page size is what counts. Can you provide guidance on what is the appropriate level of response for minimum requirements minimum qualification questions. For example, is it sufficient to answer why or no? My advice is don't answer with why or no. Provide an explanation. If it's not relevant, then just expand on that a little bit, but give us something to go off of. Let's see. Can you clarify the deadlines to spend down? That answer was not clear to me.
Well, it depends on when the grant expires. So the performance period is the grant term. So funds must be expended by that date. Unless it's the CRO DPA funds, those funds must, the funds must be expended to the home buyer transaction, and the transaction must close by June 30th, 2023. So whatever the program term is after we have fully executed agreements.
Okay, we will be posting the questions. Thank you, Kim, for sending out that communication. I'm posting the questions. Let's see, again, how can it be June 30th for CROs? How does that fit with the 2 to 3 year timeline?
The CRO DPA funds are general funds awarded to Oregon Housing in the 2021 legislative session, and they must be expended by the end of the biennium. So it's unfortunate that the timeline is different than what the program requirements are. So the program for HOPE funding and the HOPE Veteran and CET will continue, but there is a requirement for the CRO funds to be expended by the June 30th deadline.
Let's see. Okay, under service description on page 25, it asks for a general timeline. Should this be 2 or 3 years or a different scenario if applicants are requesting both HOPE and CRO funds?
I guess they're asking, would it be a different separate grant agreement? It will only be one grant agreement with the program requirement of expending your CRO funds to the transaction and the transaction closing by June 30th, 2023. It'll only be one agreement. Am I understanding that correctly, Lisa?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Okay. Am I reading correctly that 30% of all awarded funds must go to the first generation home buyers?
Yes.
It seems to go against OHCS's DEI goals to ask CROs to spend down funds at a rate 4 times faster than non-CROs.
It's not the organization that has to spend all of their funding in a short period of time. It's just the CRO DPA funds. So they're called culturally responsive organization funds. That's how it was slated in our budget. So that's why we're calling it culturally responsive organization funds. It's not the organization. If the organization receives these funds, they must expend them faster. There is nothing we can do about it. It's based off of when the funds were awarded to Oregon Housing, and it's based on how general funds are used. We have it from our budget office that they call it goods and services must be received by the end of the biennium, which is June 30th, 23. And so the transaction must close by June 30th. And it's just those funds that has that requirement. The HOPE funds and the Veteran Fund and the CET funds are not required to be expended at that rate, during that time period. We had no control over this, so I'm sorry this is causing some angst for some of you.
Thanks for that clarification. Let's see. Do you have a target date when we can start using funds? I'm concerned about the very short timeline for CRO funds.
Well, once the application closes, then our procurement department will take care of the applications, get them to the evaluators. We're hoping to get everything done and grant agreements out as soon as possible, but we have, the grant agreements have to go through DOJ process again, once we award the funds to grantees. The grant agreement has been approved, but it does have to be approved again after we've inserted the grantee's name and the award amounts. We're hoping January 1 is our timeline for fully
Right.
executed, but we can't guarantee that, but we're trying our best to get things done. We have this open for 30 days, a little over 30 days.
Right. Okay, let's see. How do we verify / determine if an applicant is a first generation buyer? Good question.
So the definition to a first generation home buyer is in the RFA. I'm not going to read it.
Yeah,
But it's in the RFA, and they just have to self-attest that they are a first generation home buyer. Your organization is working with the client, so you would know the client and have them sign the form. We have a form that has that exact definition, so they would just sign saying that they are a first generation home buyer. It's up to the client for self-attestation.
just to note that definition is on page 8 of the RFA. And it's a little lengthy, so you may want to take a few minutes and read it. Let's see, 2 or 3 years is a big difference on pipeline timeline. Should we assume 3 years in our ask and we can give funds back? Oops, what happened? If we receive a contract with a 2-year timeline.
So to clarify, the 3-year program term would be if you're awarded veterans funds, and that allows you to have time to for clients that are in the Build Your Future program for veterans. The other funding sources would be a 2-year program term. Hopefully that should help. Sorry, I didn't clarify that.
That's
earlier.
okay. That's right. So the veterans, 3 years, all others, 2 years. Okay. Why weren't those CRO funds awarded to groups before now? Since they were awarded in 2021, which could have allowed more time and gotten ahead of the rising interest rate.
When we found out we were awarded these funds, we were in the process of re-evaluating our DPA program and did our outreach, wanting to combine the CRO funds with the current program. And Oregon Housing has an approval process for program changes. And we went through the program changes, had approval in February of this year. And then the RFA and grant agreement have to go through the procurement process to be reviewed, and then again through DOJ for legal sufficiency. So the different processes cause for this to take a little longer than it would have. And we couldn't just take the money and award it out to organizations. We had to have it go through one of our programs. I don't know, Kim, if you want to elaborate on that.
Sorry, I had to get myself off mute. No, Alicia is correct. And Cheryl, your question is very valid. But we were in the redesign of our down payment assistance program from stakeholder feedback about increasing the dollar amounts to home buyers. And that work takes time internally, and then our stakeholder engagement. And on the flip side, trying not to have multiple grant agreements out with different requirements on different buckets of money as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes for projects. And please know that we're trying to do the best we can to try to get this out to the communities. Any other questions before we end the webinar session?
Lisa, can you just remind everyone how long they have to submit additional questions after
will.
today as well, just so everyone has that
Sure.
date
Sure.
fresh in their mind?
Sure.
Thank you.
So just to reiterate, you can submit questions through the close of business on Monday, November 14th. Any questions that come in after close of business on November 14th will not be answered. So it's very important that you get all your questions in prior to close of business on the 14th. And we will post all questions no later than close of business on November 21st. This will give you a couple of weeks before the due date. So.
Lisa, can we just
And it's
clarify?
5 p.m. It's 5 p.m. close of business on November 14th. And it's 5 p.m. on November 21st, in which the agency, Pacific Standard Time, in which the agency must have all questions answered and posted.
And I think just for clarity, time zone was asked as well, but
Pacific
anything
Standard.
coming out of OHCS would always be Pacific Standard Time. But thank you for always asking, because I know we do have a partner who is not in Pacific Standard Time. So I appreciate those
Yes.
questions as well. But standard practice has always been Pacific Standard Time here at the agency.
Okay, and once again, you can email all your questions to the email address on the front page of the RFA. Just remember to get your questions in by November 14th at 5 p.m. So any other questions before we conclude today's webinar? No. All right, well, thank you very much for your attendance, your participation, and your questions. And give us a couple days and we will get this posted to the procurement site. And we look forward to working with you and looking at your proposals. Thank you very much for your time.